Imagine this. You're standing in a hallway that stretches infinitely in both directions. The walls are breathing, expanding and contracting like lungs. Your childhood dog walks past you on two legs, wearing your father's face, and you feel no confusion, only profound sadness. You open a door and find yourself back in your elementary school, except the lockers are bleeding, and your math teacher is trying to tell you something urgent. But when she opens her mouth, butterflies pour out instead of words. You wake up sweating, heart pounding, with tears on your cheeks. And the strangest part? Some deep, wordless part of you understood exactly what that dream was screaming. But here's what haunts you. Why couldn't your subconscious just tell you? Why the circus of symbols? Why the cryptic theater of morphing faces and impossible physics? If your deeper mind had something important to communicate, why didn't it simply whisper in clear, articulate sentences? You're afraid of abandonment. Or you're avoiding a difficult conversation with your father. Why does the most ancient, powerful part of your psyche, the part that's been with you since before you learned language, before you had a name, before you knew you were you, insist on speaking in riddles? This isn't just curious, it's unsettling. Because if you think about it, really think about it, you spend roughly 1/3 of your life in a state where your own mind becomes incomprehensible to you. Every night, you slip into a realm where the rules of logic dissolve, where metaphor becomes more real than reality, where a staircase can represent your ambition and a locked door can embody every fear you've ever suppressed. And when you wake, you scramble to translate these fever dreams into language, like an archaeologist trying to decipher hieroglyphs from a civilization that never learned to write. What if this isn't a bug in human consciousness? What if it's the most essential feature? Consider this troubling thought. Perhaps words, those sounds and symbols you're reading right now, aren't the native language of human experience at all. Perhaps language is actually a recent evolutionary hack, a thin veneer of translation layered over something far more primal, far more true. What if every time you try to explain a feeling, describe a memory, or articulate an intuition, you're actually betraying it, forcing something fluid and multi-dimensional into the rigid, linear prison of grammar and syntax? Your subconscious doesn't dream in metaphors because it's being poetic or mysterious. It dreams in metaphors because that's its actual language. The symbolism isn't decoration, it's the substance. The impossible physics aren't glitches, they're the syntax. When your mind shows you a house with infinite rooms, it's not representing complexity. It is complexity, manifested in the only medium where pure psychological truth can exist without the distortion of words. And this raises a question so profound, it should stop you in your tracks. If the deepest, truest part of you, the part that holds your traumas, your desires, your unspoken wisdom, cannot speak in words, then who exactly is the you that talks all day, that narrates your life in sentences, that thinks in language? Are you living as a translator of your own experience, forever separated from your authentic self by the very tool you use to understand it? Stay with me until the end of this journey, because what we're about to uncover will fundamentally alter how you understand not just your dreams, but every moment of your waking life. The answer to why your subconscious speaks in symbols will reveal something so unsettling about human consciousness that you'll never experience your own thoughts the same way again. And if you find yourself questioning everything you thought you knew about your inner world, hit that like button, because that discomfort, that's exactly where the truth lives. Share this with someone who's ever woken from a dream they couldn't shake, and subscribe, because we're about to go deeper into the architecture of the mind than most people dare to venture. The rabbit hole begins here, and there's no metaphor for how far down it goes. Here's what nobody tells you about language. It arrived catastrophically late to the human experience. For millions of years, your ancestors navigated the world without a single word. They fell in love, grieved their dead, felt existential dread beneath star-filled skies, experienced awe, terror, and transcendence, all without the to say, "I feel sad," or that sunset is beautiful. They lived entirely in what we might call the realm of pure experience, unmediated, unnarrated, unsymbolized by grammar. And their brains, your brain, evolved its deepest architectures in that pre-linguistic darkness. The right hemisphere of your brain, the seat of your subconscious processing, still operates primarily in that ancient mode. It traffics in patterns, emotions, spatial relationships, holistic images. It grasps the gestalt, the whole feeling of a situation before any analysis occurs. When you meet someone and instantly feel distrust for reasons you can't articulate, that's your right hemisphere screaming a warning in its native tongue. When you look at a painting and feel your chest tighten with inexplicable longing, that's pre-linguistic meaning washing over you like a wave. Carl Jung understood this with haunting clarity. In his Red Book, he wrote of the psyche's symbolic language as something that predates and transcends conscious rationality. He called dreams a little hidden door in the innermost and most secret recesses of the soul. But here's what Jung knew that most people miss. The door doesn't open into a room with written instructions. It opens into a theater where your psyche stages elaborate performances using the only vocabulary it has, the vocabulary of lived experience transformed into living symbol. Jung spent years analyzing his own dreams and those of his patients, and he noticed something startling. The same symbols appeared across cultures, across time periods, in people who had no contact with each other. The wise old man, the devouring mother, the shadow self, the journey across water. These weren't learned metaphors. They were the fundamental grammar of the unconscious mind, what he called archetypes. They emerged not from culture, but from the structure of human experience itself. But why? Why would the deepest part of your psyche evolve to speak this way? Consider what happens when you try to describe a complex emotional experience in words. Let's say you're sitting with the grief of losing someone you loved, but also feared. You might say, I feel sad, but also relieved, and guilty about feeling relieved, but also angry that I have to feel guilty. Notice what's happening. You're linearizing something that isn't linear. You're taking a multi-dimensional emotional reality, grief, relief, guilt, anger, all existing simultaneously, interpenetrating, creating emergent feelings that don't have names, and you're forcing it into a sequence of words, one after another, connected by but and also. You've just murdered the truth of your experience and replaced it with an autopsy report. Language operates through separation and sequence, subject, verb, object. First this, then that. A is not B, but psychic reality doesn't work that way. In your subconscious, your mother is also the archetype of mother, which is also your first experience of safety, which is also your first experience of dependence, which is also your fear of abandonment, which is also every woman you've ever loved or feared. These realities exist as a simultaneous constellation, not a sentence. So when your subconscious needs to show you this truth, that your relationship with a current partner is being distorted by unresolved maternal wounds, it can't just tell you. Because telling requires linear language, and linear language would shatter the multidimensional truth into fragments. Instead, it shows you a dream. You're in your childhood home, but your partner is there. But they're also somehow your mother, and the house is flooding, and you're trying to save them. But the water keeps rising from inside the walls. That dream isn't a metaphor for your psychological reality. It is your psychological reality expressed in its native form. And if this is shaking something loose in your understanding, don't let it slip away. Hit that like button to mark this moment of recognition. Share this with someone who's ever said, I can't put it into words, because maybe they shouldn't have to. And subscribe, because we're about to explore the devastating consequences of living in a world that demands you translate everything you feel into a language that was never designed to hold it. The violence of translation, that's what we're confronting next, and it's more destructive than you've ever imagined. Psychologists call it alexithymia, the inability to identify and describe emotions. But that clinical term misses the violence of what's actually happening. You're not simply unable to name your feelings. You're being forced to cram an ocean into a teacup, and then you're being told that what doesn't fit simply doesn't exist. Every time you reduce the swirling complexity of your inner experience to I'm fine or I'm stressed or even I'm sad, you're performing an act of psychological compression so severe it would be considered data loss in any other system. And here's the devastating part. You've learned to mistake the translation for the original. Watch what happens in therapy sessions, in relationships, in moments of crisis. Someone asks, "How do you feel?" And people freeze. They search desperately through their mental vocabulary list. Happy, sad, angry, afraid, like a tourist pointing at phrases in a guidebook, hoping one of them approximates the foreign country they're actually experiencing. And when none of them quite fit, when the feeling is something more like the hollow ache of watching your life become a story you didn't choose, mixed with defiant hope and exhausted tenderness, they give up. They say confused or overwhelmed. They reduce the symphony to static. But your subconscious doesn't forget. It can't forget, because it's still living in that untranslated reality. This is why your dreams feel more real than real life sometimes. That nightmare where you're trying to scream but no sound comes out, that's not symbolic. That's literal. That's you, every waking day, experiencing profound truths that language has rendered unspeakable. The dream is showing you the actual shape of your psychological reality. You have something urgent to express, but the medium available to you, words, cannot carry it. Neuroscience confirms this split. Studies using fMRI scans show that when people try to verbalize emotional experiences, activity in the amygdala and right hemisphere actually decreases. The act of naming your feelings literally dampens them. It's called affect labeling. And while therapists sometimes use it to help people regulate overwhelming emotions, there's a dark side nobody mentions. You're not regulating the emotion, you're suppressing the full-dimensional truth of it. You're choosing the comfort of comprehension over the accuracy of experience. The philosopher Ludwig Wittgenstein spent his life wrestling with this problem. He wrote, "The limits of my language mean the limits of my world." But he went further, suggesting that the most important things, ethical truth, aesthetic beauty, the meaning of life, cannot be spoken about at all. They can only be shown. He called them the mystical, and he believed they were inexpressible not because they were vague, but because they were too precise, too specific to the lived texture of experience to survive translation into the crude generalities of language. Your subconscious already knows this. It's been trying to show you all along. Think about your most vivid dreams, the ones that stay with you for days or years. They have a quality that your waking thoughts never achieve. They feel true in a way that transcends factual accuracy. A dream where you're flying might be more truthful about your sense of freedom or escape than any journal entry where you wrote, "I feel free." The dream doesn't describe the feeling. It is the feeling, given form and physics and narrative weight. And this is where it gets truly unsettling. If your subconscious understands you more accurately than your conscious mind does, if it has access to truths about your life that cannot survive translation into language, then every decision you make using words and logic is based on incomplete information. You're navigating your life with a map that's missing entire continents. You're living as a stranger to yourself, speaking a foreign language even inside your own head. But what if you could learn to read the original text? What if instead of demanding your subconscious speak your language, you learn to speak its language? That's not just an interesting idea, it's a revolution in self-understanding. And if you're starting to feel like you've been living in exile from your own depths, let that recognition move you to hit the like button. Share this with someone who's ever felt misunderstood even by themselves, and subscribe, because what comes next is the map back home. The way to bridge the divide between who you are and who you can articulate. The rebellion against language begins now, and it will set you free in ways words never could. The revolution begins with a radical act. Stop trying to translate your dreams and start learning to be in them. Here's what the dream interpretation industry doesn't want you to know. Every time you wake up and immediately ask, "What does this mean?" Every time you crack open a dream dictionary or search for snake symbolism, you're dragging your subconscious back into the prison of language. You're demanding it speak on the conscious mind's terms, in the conscious mind's inferior vocabulary. You're a colonizer, insisting the indigenous population learn your language instead of bothering to learn theirs. Jung saw this trap clearly. He never asked, "What does this symbol mean?" as if there were a one-to-one translation. Instead, he asked, "What does this symbol do? How does it move in the psyche? What associations does it activate? What feelings does it constellate?" He understood that a snake in your dream isn't a word to be defined, it's an experience to be amplified. It connects to every encounter you've had with snakeness, the danger, the transformation, the ancient fear, the phallic power, the shedding of skin, the wisdom in the grass. So here's your first act of rebellion. Keep a dream journal, but do it differently. Don't write interpretations, don't explain. Instead, write images. Draw if you can't draw well, that's perfect. Because you're not making art for others, you're thinking in the subconscious's native medium. Use colors, create collages, let one image lead to another image. Follow the visual logic, the emotional logic, the dream logic. When you dreamed of that house with infinite rooms, don't write, "This represents the complexity of my psyche." Instead, draw the house. Describe the feeling of each room. Notice which doors you were afraid to open. Sit with the spatial reality of it, the architecture of your inner world rendered visible. Let it exist as image before you murder it with meaning. Second, cultivate what Freud called free association, but do it without words when possible. When a symbol from your dream surfaces in waking life, you see an image that reminds you of something from last night's dream. Don't think about it. Feel where it lands in your body. Does your chest tighten? Does your stomach drop? Does energy rise in your throat? Your body is still fluent in pre-linguistic truth. It's been speaking the subconscious's language all along, but you've been too busy narrating your experience to listen. Third, and this is where it gets truly subversive, start catching your waking thoughts before they become sentences. There's a moment, brief, almost imperceptible, between the arising of experience and its crystallization into language. You see a sunset, and for a microsecond, there's just the experience. Pure, unmediated, impossible to describe. Then your mind says, "Beautiful sunset," and you've lost it. It's become a cliche, a postcard, a caption. But in that microsecond before language arrived, you touch the same realm your subconscious inhabits permanently. Meditation traditions have known this for millennia, that the thinking mind is not the source of wisdom, but its translator, and a poor one at that. When Buddhist teachers talk about emptiness or no self, they're not being mystical. They're pointing to the pre-linguistic reality that exists before you narrate it into a self, a story, a problem to solve. The painter Paul Klee said, "Art does not reproduce what we see. Rather, it makes us see." Your subconscious operates exactly the same way. It doesn't describe your psychological reality. It shows you into direct contact with it, and once you learn to meet it there, something extraordinary happens. You discover that you've been living on the surface of yourself, mistaking the menu for the meal, the map for the territory, the translation for the truth. Start small. Tonight, before you sleep, tell your subconscious, "I'm ready to meet you where you live. Show me what words cannot." And when you wake, resist the urge to explain what you saw. Just let it be. Let it work on you the way a painting works on you, the way music works on you, wordlessly, wholly, in the ancient language that made you before you made yourself. If this practice feels like coming home to a language you forgot you knew, mark that homecoming with a like. Share this with someone who's ever felt that words fail them, because they should. And subscribe, because we're approaching the final revelation, the one that will reframe everything you thought you knew about consciousness itself. The ultimate truth awaits, and it cannot be spoken, only shown. Here is the truth that will haunt you, liberate you, and irrevocably alter how you experience every moment of your existence. You are not the narrator of your life. You are the dream that's being narrated. Everything you think of as you, that verbal, analytical, self-aware consciousness that talks to itself in sentences, that plans and worries and judges, is not the author of your experience. It's the translator, the interpreter, the part that comes in after the fact and tries to make linguistic sense of something that has already happened in the wordless depths. Neuroscience has proven this in experiments so disturbing they should be taught in every school. Benjamin Libet's studies in the 1980s showed that your brain initiates actions up to half a second before you become consciously aware of deciding to act. Your subconscious has already moved your hand before your conscious mind claims credit with the thought, "I chose to move my hand." The narrating mind isn't driving the car, it's the passenger writing the story of the journey and mistaking the story for the steering wheel. You are living your life backwards. Experience happens first in the deep pre-linguistic layers of your psyche. Then, your conscious mind rushes in with words, constructing a narrative that feels like the cause but is actually the effect. And the tragedy is that you've believed the narrative so completely, you've forgotten you're the dream beneath it. This is why your subconscious speaks in metaphors, because it's showing you what's actually real. That dream where you're falling endlessly, that's not a metaphor for anxiety. That is your anxiety, experienced directly, without the numbing mediation of the word anxiety. The falling is the thing itself. And when you wake and say, "I dreamed I was falling," which represents my fear of failure, you've already stepped back from the truth. You've traded direct experience for comfortable explanation. Jung understood this revelation could shatter people. He wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." But even that statement doesn't go far enough. The unconscious doesn't need to become conscious. It needs to be recognized as the ground of consciousness itself. The narrator isn't the person, it's a function the person performs, like breathing. And you can no more understand yourself through that narrator than you can understand your lungs by analyzing each breath. So here's your final practice, the one that integrates everything. Live one day as the dream, not the dreamer. Move through your waking life as if you're a symbol in your own subconscious theater. When you feel anger rise, don't name it anger. Experience it as fire in your chest, as energy demanding outlet, as information your body is giving you before your mind can classify it. When you encounter another person, notice the immediate pre-verbal sense of them, the feeling they generate before you construct a judgment. That's the real data. That's what your subconscious sees. Keep a waking dream journal. Throughout your day, notice moments where reality feels symbolic, where a stuck door feels like more than a stuck door, where rain feels like it's matching your mood, where you keep seeing the same color or number or animal. Your subconscious is speaking to you in waking life the same way it speaks in sleep. Synchronicities aren't magical. They're you, finally noticing the metaphoric logic that's been operating all along. And here's the most practical gift this understanding offers. When you're facing a difficult decision, stop asking your analytical mind for answers. It doesn't have them. Instead, pay attention to your dreams in the night surrounding the decision. Notice what symbols arise. Notice how your body responds when you imagine different paths. Your subconscious has already processed more variables than your conscious mind can count, and it's trying to show you the answer in the only language that can hold the full truth of it. You are not the words. You are what the words are desperately trying to point toward. And the moment you stop trying to understand yourself through language alone, the moment you learn to read the symbolic logic of your own depths, you become fluent in the oldest language humans have ever spoken, the language of direct, unmediated, undeniable truth. If this realization has cracked something open in you, if you feel like you've just remembered something you always knew, honor that by hitting the like button. Share this with someone who needs permission to trust what they feel over what they can say. And subscribe, because this journey into the architecture of consciousness never truly ends. It only deepens, becomes richer, more strange, more beautiful. Your subconscious has been speaking to you every night of your life in a language older than words, truer than facts, more precise than any sentence could ever be. The question was never, why does it speak in metaphors? The question is, are you finally ready to listen? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel for more of such deep, thought-provoking content.